Okay, guys, so we have worked with loops, with while loops, with for loops, with lists. We've worked with functions. We are going to see something called traversals. And traversals is just the way that you navigate or you search in a list. Okay? And you do this by creating a loop. So the first thing we're going to do is that you guys are going to create two labels, a label that says search a number from 1 to 100. Then you're going to type in, here's going to be the number where you're going to put the number to search for, and then you will see the result if the number is actually on the list. So for this, we need to populate a list. First of all, we need to populate a list with 100 random numbers that go from 1 to 100, okay? So that's very easy. The first thing we got to do is create a variable for our list that's going to be called number list, okay? I'm going to call it number list, and this is going to be an empty list. I'm also going to create another variable called random number. This is the random number that I'm going to generate to populate each position of the list. So these are the two variables that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to say that when text input submit, or when I press the enter key on the text input, I'm going to start doing stuff. So you can use it with a button, you can use it with a text input, you can use it with different ways in order to activate or trigger the different event. Okay, remember that this is an event handler. Now, in order to first populate the list, I need a for loop, okay? And I'm going to use a loop that is going to count with I from 1 to 100 by 1. Remember that this is the number of iterations, the number of cycles. So I'm cycling 100 times because I need a list with 100 numbers and random numbers from 1 to 0, from 1 to 100. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is that I am going to grab a random number and I'm going to store it in random number variable. So I'm going to set my random number variable to a random number from 1 to 100. So if I go to the math palette, I'm going to look for the random integer. Okay, I can find a random integer from 1 to 100, and it's going to give me any number between this range. Okay, so I'm getting a random integer and I'm storing it in my random number variable. Now, this is just one number. I need to add it to my list. So remember that when we use list, we can say that we want to insert a certain object or a certain string or a number into the list in a position, either last, first, or in a random position. Okay, so what list is the one that I'm using? The number list. So I'm going to grab my number list and I'm going to insert it at the last as, and what is the number that I'm going to insert? Well, this is just the variable number, random number, and now I'm inserting 100 numbers. How do I know that this actually works? To do this, I would need to view the list that was generated by this for loop. So in that case, let's just add a list. Even though you store a list, you don't have to see it. It's going to be there. It's stored on the list. But let's say we want to see the list that was generated. So I'm going to add a list viewer, and I'm going to see the numbers that were generated on that list. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the blocks, and then after I finish populating that list, I am going to update the list viewer. So I'm going to say that from the list viewer 1, I'm going to set the text items to the, of course, the list that I needed. Okay, so let's see if we can try it out and see if we can generate the numbers. Okay, so remember that the trigger, it's actually putting something on the text input and pressing enter. That will trigger this, so the list will only be visible when I press the number and the enter key. Let's go to the design and let's look how it works. So I have an empty list. There's nothing should be here, and I need to trigger this. So I'm going to press the number 5 and then press enter, and automatically the list was populated. So you can see we have random numbers. We have 100 random numbers in our list. Okay, now what we need to code is to see if the number 5, or the number we just entered, it is located in one of these positions. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to show what is the position that it was found. If the number is not here, then it would say not found. Okay, so let's try to code that. Okay, so this is where the actual traversal comes in. We need to find a number in a list of elements. In order to find a number in the list of elements, we need to go to each position and see if that number is the one that we're looking for. So we are going to need, of course, another for loop to go and traverse all the list again. But at this time, we need to go and look at each position of the list. So I'm going to create another for loop. As a matter of fact, I'm going to duplicate this one because I just need another for loop from 1 to this time. I want to use the length of the list. It doesn't matter. I know that's 100 numbers, so I'm not going to have a problem. But just in case in some other exercise, you want to traverse using the size of the list. Okay, so I'm going to use the length of the list. I'm going to go to list, and I'm going to look for the length. Okay, take this, and the length of the number list. I'm going to put it right over here. And I'm going to go from 1 to the length of the list and count by 1. Okay, now I'm going to erase this. I don't need this anymore. Okay, so this is the new loop. Now I have the number of iterations, and I need to look at every position of the list. Okay, so in this case, we're going to find a conditional statement. We're going to say if the random number is equal to the number in the position of the list I, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. If it's the same, then we're just gonna output the I, so it looks for the position. Listen, this program, this traversal will find the first occurrence of that number. If it finds the first occurrence, it's because the number exists. If it has more than one occurrence, then we should build another code to find the number of occurrences in the list. So for now, we're going to find the first occurrence of the number that we just input. So we're going to say that if the app variable random number that was generated, the one that we input, and for this we haven't created the variable, because this text input, when I click submit, I need to store that variable. So I'm missing the input variable. So I'm going to create another variable, and I'm going to call it input variable, and I'm going to start it to 0, and then I'm going to need, when this text submits, I need to set this variable. So I'm going to set the variable, the input variable to, and I'm going to go and look at the text input, and I'm going to get the text. Okay, so it's as easy as that. Now, input variable has whatever text I got. Now I need to get the variable, the input var, which is the variable I entered, and I need to compare it with the number on each location. Now I go to list. You're always going to find it in list, and in list we can find in list. In the list, and we have number list over here. In the number list, find the first occurrence of, we can do this, we can find the first occurrence of, I'm sorry, this block of code will find the first occurrence of the list. So it will do the traversal on its own. So inside this block there is a traversal. Since we're doing it manually, we are going to get from the list, in list get, and we're going to get that from that list. Okay, so let's get the number list in list, get number, and this number is going to be I, which is the iteration that we are on. Okay, that is very, very important. So, whoops. Okay, so this is this goes here, and I'm gonna get the I. So I'm gonna look in the variables and get I. I'm gonna put it right here. Now let's make a recap. So if the variable input, which I put on the text input, is equal to the number on that position of the list, which just starts in 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 100, then I am going to just set the label. I have a label number 2, which is result. I'm going to set that label. Okay, we have it over here. So if this is true, I'm going to set the label to number found. Okay, and then he's going to continue doing it all the way, all the way, all the way. And when he comes out of the loop, okay, if the number is not found, then he's going to come out and never show number found. So what am I going to do outside of the loop? I am going to set this label. Okay, I'm going to set this label to a variable, to the variable input bar, which is going to be -1. Okay, so I'm going to put -1, and I know that when it shows -1, it's that the number is not found. So I'm going to put input bar, the input bar right here. So input bar will never change, will never ever change unless it goes into the if statement. Okay, now I'm missing something from this block of code. Label to set text to, and I'm going to set the text to the position that I found the variable. Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's run this program and let's see if we have any bugs that we need to fix. This is the process of debugging. As a matter of fact, we should have a bug that I will tell you about in a minute. So let's say I'm going to look for the number 15, okay? I'm going to press enter, and okay, we're going to see if, well, it looks like we have a bug because it says it's 15, and the position of 15 it shouldn't be there, right? So it might not even be here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to check for the bug, see what happens, and I'm going to go to my blocks, and what I see is that after the loop is completed, I set the text to the input variable, and the input variable is always the variable that I'm selecting. So I need to modify that a little bit in order to see what's going on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take away this block from here because this is the one that it's affecting because it's always overriding the variable. And I'm going to create another variable that says, it's saying, well, the text is saying I if it finds it, and I'm going to create another one which is going to be the final label. Let's create another variable just so we can say final label or final result, and I'm going to put this one to -1. Okay, that way I know that it will show final result. If it doesn't find anything, it will show final result. Okay, and if this happens, well, final result is going to be updated here. That way I know that it found the variable. So I'm going to say that final result, I'm going to set the final result right over here if it finds the variable. Final result, I'm going to set it to I. Okay, and then this text is going to be final result. Okay, okay. And let's look for final result. Okay, and we're going to show final result. If this never changed, then final result will show a -1 at the end. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this. If it never goes in the if statement, then we just need to show the final result. Let's see if this works. Okay, so let's click on the preview and let's see if we can run the program. I'm gonna look for the number 5 and see if the 5 appears at least once. I'm gonna press enter, and it looks like in the whole list there is not a number 5, so it shows a -1 because the final result variable never changed. So it looked on each position and it never found the -1. Let's look one more time. Let's try to do it again. Okay, I'm gonna press the number, I don't know, 15. Maybe we can find a hit. Oh, so it found that on position 54, there's the number 15. So it's giving me the position where this number is located. So the number 15 should be somewhere at the middle. It's on 54. Wait, there we go. So we have it right here. So 15 is in position 54, right around the middle of the list. Okay, guys, so this is a way to find and use a traversal to find any elements. It can be numbers, it can be letters, it can be words that you find in a list, okay? And this is the way to do it, using a for loop.